First of all, this must be an exciting time for you. You're 2 days out from this release. It's one of the most anticipated movies. I cannot wait to see it.
That's great. It is.
What's the time like for you?
Well, this we've been working on this film for 4 years. This installment, anyway. Well before Rob was involved, it was sort of just the untitled Halloween project.
Yeah.
And so when we finally did get Rob involved about 1.5 years ago, things really started moving. And when we shot that first frame of film, I can't tell you how good it felt. Mm-hmm. And then to wrap it and to have the premiere last Thursday, which was incredible. So really, it's just been sort of milestone after milestone. And day after tomorrow, it will hit the theaters.
It's going to be huge.
I hope so.
It's a given. So was the plan always to kind of to do a kind of a redo of the original? Or not?
No, actually, we were contemplating doing just a regular sequel. And at the time, my late father was working with us as the executive producer, mm-hmm. and we went through 3 different drafts and 3 different sets of writers, and we couldn't really get something that we were all excited about. I mean, to do a part 9, mm-hmm. you've got all these different storylines, and it gets a bit convoluted to try and answer them all and get something fresh. So, and needless to say, as you mentioned, his untimely death sort of stalled the process a little bit. So then when we finally got back together, Bob Weinstein and I, we sort of wanted to do something that was really bigger than we had originally anticipated. So we thought, well, maybe the time is right to start again and to do sort of a remake.
Sure, yeah.
And the idea was, I told him, well, it sounds great to me, but it's really got to be someone special,
Rob Zombie is that person.
You don't get any more special.
Exactly. As soon as I said that, Bob Weinstein has always got an answer. He said, Rob Zombie. And before he could finish Zomb, I was like, wow, that's a perfect fit.
That really makes this film even more.
You could not ask for a better director for this film, just for the simple reason I've never in a long time that Mr. Zombie has such enthusiasm for the actual craft of filmmaking that it's infectious and it's needed. And I got to say, he's the right man for this film.
He is. I mean, he continually amazed me throughout the production. He is, he's the real deal. He's an amazing director, fantastic writer. And I can't say enough good things about him. I've been working in the industry for, well over 20 years, and he's probably, one of the top directors I've worked with.
What was it like? Because Rob Zombie, he had to. I assume it was a very delicate balancing act in wanting to be respectful to the Carpenter original, but also wanting to bring in his own take on the material and try to, as Zombie has said in interviews, try to kind of fill in pieces that he thought, that could be kind of put into the story. So what was that balancing act like of trying to make sure that you satisfied the original fans but wanting to bring in the new fans and so forth?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, Rob, the great thing is he really had deep respect for the original. Mm-hmm. He knows John Carpenter. We all spoke about it, and, they spoke about it, and John Carpenter was, all behind it. He said, go for it. And the one thing that was important to me was that we really do something that's different. I didn't want to try and do something that was trying to recreate John Carpenter's masterpiece, because it is, and it should stand alone on its own. And really, Rob Zombie's Halloween is a completely different movie, although you've got some the characters and some plot lines that are similar. You really can't compare the two. They're 2 completely different movies, and that's the way we wanted it, because I didn't want to compete with the original or even try and recreate such a classic film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's a smart plan. That's a good plan.
I'm curious on one more quick on the going back and forth on the what was the was there a lot of give and take on like we should try to bring this element from the original, but this element you can go hog wild on and so forth. I mean, I guess an example of is the now famous the Halloween theme music. Was that a discussion of Zombie saying I want to try doing my own theme, or was it always I think we should use the Carpenter theme?
You know, it's sort of turned out to be kind of an updating of the original theme.
Right.
But the original theme is almost as iconic as the mask. You know, so
Right.
To do it without that would be like trying to do it without the mask. And,
I agree.
You know, we had, after Bob Weinstein brought up Rob Zombie to me, we had one meeting literally, and he came in and he pitched his idea, and he just had such a great take on it, such a great feel for it, and I felt such a great respect for the film, the original, that was it. It was one meeting, and he was off writing his script, and his first draft, that, you know, you rarely get a first draft that comes in that was that strong. We were all so excited, and you know, we didn't set anything out in front of him and saying, can't do this, can't do that. And what he delivered was just, you know, I felt right on the money.
Mr. Akkad, this whole Halloween series has been such a significant part of your life and your father's life. Take me back to the beginning for just a little bit. How did your father become involved in the original picture?
He started out a company that called Compass International Pictures, and they tried to start distributing smaller films, and he realized that it would, in the long run, it would be cheaper to make cheap films than to try and buy cheap films. So he got together with John Carpenter, and he definitely impressed him. John Carpenter impressed my father very much, and he said they can do this film for $300,000. At the time, it was called Babysitter Murders, and then after they made it, they sort of came up with this new marketing plan, or as they made it anyway, to do it called Halloween, which was just brilliant, that no one had ever done that before.
I think that turned out well.
Yeah, and you know, there were so many flukes that because they had no money, like the mask, and you know, because they had to sort of use these long shots to fill the time gaps, really, but it makes it for this atmospheric film. So many of these things that they were forced to do because of the budget ended up really helping it. And then they distributed it themselves, and at the time, this company had only enough money to make 2 prints of the film, believe it or not. So they opened it, I think, in 2 drive-in theaters in Kansas City. And if of course, if it wasn't a masterpiece by John Carpenter, it never would have made it out of Kansas City. But slowly the money came in, and they were able to get more prints, and it just spread, you know, word of mouth across the country.
What do you attribute to its success? Why do you think it caught on like it did?
You know, there's so many reasons. The music's fantastic. I think the portrayal of the characters is fantastic. I remember seeing it at a very young age and thinking, you know, wow, that's what teenagers do, you know, it's so cool. And the mask was phenomenal. I think everyone has their own imagination of what's beneath that mask.
Yeah.
And it was just so suspenseful and scary. I mean, that's really what it was.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the everyone has their own opinion, own vision of what's behind that mask, because I think one of the differences from what I've gathered from what I've read with this version of Halloween is that you do get a sense of where Michael comes from, his past. And was there discussion, I'm sure you guys played devil's advocate at the beginning, that the Michael Myers of the original, a lot of people would argue, works so well because he is unknowable. He is a boogeyman, an unstoppable force.
Right.
Was that a back and forth at all, or did it just flow in the script and it wasn't questionable?
You know, we during the process of so many of the sequels, I mean, I can't tell you how many times we got pitched the idea of doing a prequel. Or a prequel/sequel, and it just never made sense to go back and tell that story because you want to keep going forward.
Right.
So when we did this one, I mean, Rob's whole take on it was that he wanted to make Michael Myers a real person,
right?
You know, as opposed to John Carpenter's, where he is sort of the shape, the boogeyman. And so it is completely 2 different takes on it. And this one, he's a fleshed out character. that you get to know, and you get to know his background, and you see a little bit more of. So I think that's it's exciting, and it's a completely, like I said, different film.
It's a risk.
No,
but I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean in a good way, because it's a risk worth taking.
Yeah, but that it sounds like just as terrifying a concept as the unknowable, Michael.
Yeah,
I hope so.
No, I think it's a risk worth taking, and under the right hands, it sounds like something that works. So
I didn't see a point in trying to, just like I said earlier, just recreate John Carpenter's. I think John Carpenter says it all, and there's no point in trying to redo that.
Of course.
Yeah.
So when Rob's take was that he wanted to really approach this in a different way, which is exactly how I felt as well. I mean, that's where we sort of really clicked. And so I think if people are expecting to see sort of a frame-by-frame remake of Halloween, that's definitely not what they're going to see.
No,
they're going to see something completely different.
What I think about what Zombies take, from what I've read, which I find more legitimate and more fascinating, and I think if the diehard fans who are sort of doing preemptive carping would think about that, this actually makes more sense in the backstory of Michael Myers than some of the sequels. As you obviously know, I think what was it, the Curse? They tried to bring in the Druids and all that stuff. I mean, I'm surprised. Fans kind of.
No, I think this was a smart way to do this. I really do.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, I mean, obviously horror fans today are a lot more sophisticated than they were in 1978. They expect a lot more, and this film is packed if you compare it to the first one.
I want to talk to you about the horror fans of today and the horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
It seems, horror films have never kind of waned in popularity, and if they ever have, they've come right back up again from the dead, so to speak. But a lot of, and I know that Mr. Zombie is a major part of the revitalization of the horror genre as of late.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people criticize the genre as being, I guess they use the term torture porn.
Right. Oh, the Edelstein term, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this film, I know like some of the Saw and some of the Hostel and some of those films do that sort of over-the-top gore stuff. This is not like that. I can definitely tell you that.
Okay.
What I really like, what we've always tried to do anyway in Halloween, and we haven't always been successful, we've always tried anyway to make it more about the 3 minutes leading up to the kill as opposed to 3 minutes of killing.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a good point. That is very true. The Friday the 13th, if you ever hear Tom Savini talk, the conference meetings were always about, okay, how can we creatively kill somebody, and that can be fun. But the Halloween films, the killings have always been rather, kind of basic, stabbing a string. But the whole cat and mouse,
exactly,
it has always been kind of the roller coaster of it.
That's what we always try and do, and this one stays true to that as well. And it's really, that's when I think the suspense is the highest, because you're sort of rooting for this character to somehow make it, and then once the kill happens, then sort of any scare is gone by then.
And talk about great casting.
It's astounding, the cast.
Malcolm McDowell and just a bunch of classic horror movie icons in this film too. It's astounding.
Yeah,
he brought with a lot of his crew from his previous films.
Yeah,
which was good. And also you got Dee Wallace, you have Brad Dourif, and Leslie Easterbrook. I mean, Clint Howard. I mean, it's just amazing, the cast.
Well, it goes back to when I first said to Bob Weinstein, we need something special, and having Rob really helped us get a great cast. I mean, not only did he work with a lot of these people, but if he hadn't, people had heard of him, they wanted to work with him, and so the credit there, I have to say, goes to Rob. What was interesting about Rob, and I'd never done this before, is that he likes to cast from video. He doesn't like to sit in a room. And, I personally find the casting process very tedious. You sit there in a room and you have actors come in, one after the other, saying the same lines. So this was a completely new process for me, the way he did it. And I was a bit nervous about it, but, it came out beautifully. And I have to say, it's a great way of casting.
Tell me about the phone call. Who made the phone call, or how did it go about that? Bringing back Danielle Harris into the series, playing one of the three main girls, because obviously Halloween fans know her from 4 and 5. What was that?
Well, I got a call from her manager, and I adore Danielle from so long ago.
Right.
Part of the Halloween family, and I just told the manager that I would set up a meeting with her, and so as I just said, Rob likes to watch tape, so he saw the tape, and she stood out as someone that he really liked, and that was before he knew who she was, that she was from 5 and 6.
Oh, he didn't know she
or
was
4 and 5, excuse me.
He didn't know she was.
He didn't know that, and
wow.
When he picked her as one of his favorites, I sort of took him aside and said, well, just so you know, this is the little girl from 4 and 5 who played a different character. And in the end, it didn't matter to him, and to me, I felt great. For the fans who know, they'll really like it and get a kick out of it. And she really did a fantastic job, as she always does.
I got on these sequels, speaking of 4 and 5, because I remember 4 coming out in Halloween of '88, and the franchise had kind of been dormant, I think, for about 5 years.
Correct.
After Season of the Witch.
Right.
My question is, and this is a personal question for you, because I know that was kind of the first one I think you worked on.
Yeah.
Is there one of the sequels, because obviously they go, even the fans will say up and down.
Of course.
But is there a sequel that you actually prefer? Because I'm actually a fan of 4, and I think 4 is actually does have some bite to it and some real suspense.
You're not alone. A lot of people love 4.
Yeah, that was always my father's favorite for a lot of reasons. What happened with Season of the Witch, basically the series was dead in the water. As far as
great jingle though, that countdown jingle.
Yeah. So many years later, my dad said, "Well, why not bring him back?" And everyone kind of thought he was crazy. So he bought the rights and package and got it. Bought the partners out anyway, and went ahead and did 4 on his own. And 4 was. It was number 1 for 2 weeks straight in the country at the time, and it was a huge
big
success.
Deal for horror films in '88.
It was a huge success, and it was always his favorite. And then 5, which I didn't work on, but 5 they came out the very next year, which was probably too soon, and it was a much weaker film from my point of view.
It had that ESP slant to it.
Yeah.
Interesting, but it kind of.
I like the one where Jamie Lee Curtis came back.
Now, H2O is one of my favorites, definitely.
That's a great film.
Was there attempts made to bring John Carpenter back for that one?
Well, on and off, we've talked to him about it, but it's never, for one reason or another, it's never panned out. And it's either been scheduling issues. Does he want to
come back to direct at all, like feature films?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure he's still doing feature films.
I'd camp out for that.
He is still going to do feature films, but for whatever reason, scheduling or creative conflicts, or for whatever reason it is, we could never seem to get it together. But I have such great respect for him as a filmmaker, and
absolutely.
Of course.
Well, I just have one more question for you, Mr. Akkad.
Sure.
Then we'll let you go. You'll be off the hook here. I know one of the greatest joys of this whole process has to be when you have the finished product and you observe the audience reaction.
Yeah.
What has some of that reaction been thus far from the advanced screenings you've attended?
Well, I have to say that the premiere was amazing. We was at the Man's Chinese in L.A., which is like, the premier theater. You cannot get a better theater. And we had over 1,000 people in the audience. And right before the film, I mentioned, real quick, a little tribute to my father, when the whole place erupted. So that really was heartwarming.
Good.
And then during the film, the audience they were on the edge of their seats the whole time. And
that's what we want to hear.
Literally people running. Some people had to leave the theater. And everyone that I knew who brought a girlfriend felt like they had a tourniquet on their arm, girls squeezing their arms and literally getting angry at their boyfriends for taking them to it. And So that's the kind of reaction you want to hear. So the reaction so far has been amazing, and so we're very thrilled.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, Mr. Akkad, we thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's a great joy, and you're welcome back on anytime.
Great. Hope you guys enjoy the film.
I'll do well.
Thanks.
Take care. Thanks.